waiting for the before you chop. I was really worried. I don't know she's trying to explain. No, what we should share, they don't know my family, don't know so
representing His Excellency. Oh, you are not representing, you also have your own capacity to see your brother. But I recognize His Excellency. That's the man who gave me my first word appointment in life about 10 years ago. And I appreciate him all of the time. His Excellency Kayode. Here this morning represented by his wife, who is also here in her own capacity. Please a round of applause for her. And I accept it because I know she will tell me something after. You know, we women, we like our own name, but I said it purposefully. It's a pleasure to have you here, man. And I'm glad you're on with us. Our fathers of faith. I'd like to say that our priests from the Chapel of the Living Cross are already in the house. Please give them a round of applause for us. I'm also happy to say that our families, actually one of them rode all the way from Abeokuta this morning. IYA, I recognize you, but after 70, please go easy on riding on Lagos Road. I recognize you, and I recognize everyone from Abeokuta. We had such a lovely time way back then. We still have such strong bond that we can still call each other, even years after. I recognize you all. Thank you for coming. Excellency, I hope that is how, that's here too, I want to share. At some point, my son will say, I recognize him. That young man is almost bringing a wife home for you now. Auntie Otola, it's a pleasure to see you. The alternative to the alternative, I recognize you. All of our dear fellowship of joy, every represented by Dr. Kayode, we recognize you. My daddy, maybe like they say, I'll come to the Senate. All Kayode's classmates, and the Justice Bajabia said, he had always shown promise as a small boy. And I can comfortably tell you that even as a bigger boy, he's still showing promises. It's a pleasure to see all of you, past classmates of Kayode's family. Thank you for this morning you have done. Separately, he has written things on Facebook, and he will quote his grandmother. His grandmother was a woman of enterprise. In fact, I think I have never seen a businesswoman like her. And the only thing she does is she sells gold. And she's the Yaonobi of Agege Market. If you know Lagos, you know how big Agege is. And I'm a proud owner of one of the shops in Agege Market because I have a grandmother who sells granules and somebody who sells cola nuts. She was the first woman I knew who would go to the north carrying her cola nuts or carrying kanga, you know those meats wish would be shared with you today. My job is easy. It's just to welcome everybody, to say we are glad you are here to rejoice with us, to say that we are happy that you could make time out of no time, to say that being here is a good honor that you have done to God and to us. Thank you very much for leaving the most important things to you this morning and way back and deciding to be part of our job. And I pray that the Lord will bless you, the Lord will keep you. And the bond and the cord of love that binds us together in deed and in truth will not be broken. Even if it is shaken, it will not be broken. In Jesus' precious name. I will now say that the celebrant himself would have to introduce the senator. I will leave that for him. But sir, I recognize you, sir. Thank you for teaching us the promptness of timing. Every time I have anything to do with him, my heart is always being jumped. You know, these days, we like Nigerian and African time. But when I knew he was in Nigeria, I said, Adam, he will come on time. And trust me, this morning, we did. Even in old age, he will keep prospering. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand over this microphone to the chair of the occasion, who's going to direct every other affair today. And so, please permit me to hand over the microphone to Dr. OLOBI. Please give him a round of applause.
Very subjective, powerful, personal accounts of specific events in our life. That is the memoir, so I know. But when the memoir you're about to look at captures stories that are identical to your own life, it's scary. For this people, made me read this several times with so much. I was arrested, I was captured. Because I don't know whether Kayode knew this, or whether, I'm sure back whether I didn't know this. My mother was Igbo. My mother was partly Delta Igbo and partly Obaru. But unlike Kayode, I was born and raised in Kano. So I grew up as a child speaking Hausa, Igbo, and some little Yoruba as a child. So when I came to the West, as a 10-year-old, my Yoruba was so bad, I was a lot of jokes in my primary school in Ibadan. And I had to go back to learning everything from scratch. And I was taught from that point to different when I was confronted with Fanua's writings. That unlike Kayode, I don't think Kayode speaks Igbo fluently as I do, or like Friday speaks Hausa as I do. But like Kayode, there are certain experiences in this book that captured my own life in a way that scared me. For instance, the scene where soldiers invaded the house in Nigeria during the Civil War. It happened to my mom. My mom was living in Nigeria, and she almost got killed one morning. When soldiers came looking for this evil woman who was living in the neighborhood, somebody saved my mom by saying, oh no, Mama is married to. And so they left her. And I was away in school and things like when it happened. So when I read this, was it something that Kayode knew was going to happen? And I asked me to be here because the details of this, as I said, written in masterful prose, and I'm not going to review it. I know you're going to come and do that. But also with details that are, in my view, the question I was asked again and again when I wrote that was, how do you remember these details? How do you recall it? Again, I was luckier than you, Kayode, because when I wrote my memoirs, I had a wife I've been married for 2 years, and I kept saying to her, remember that incident in New York? Tell me, who was at that meeting there? So I did that. But here in the old days, there were very details from my childhood, so clearly, with names and details that I felt about her life entirely. But what he has done, which is what memoirs do very well, is to take sections from her life and to try and let us experience them from his point of view. Now, so that strength of the book becomes weakness, because then at the end, when you get to that end, it's but you have to put the story for me here. But then it breaks it. You want a problem with this kind of book, but they know what like this is that. Snippets also can make you, because there are many stories to tell from your point of view, from your perspective. Some stories, and one or two of them, I'm sure the media will get to that, appear slightly flat. But that's because there are so many stories to look at. And sometimes the author himself, no matter how much he tries, listen, where is the book? The most masterful, and I must say this, for someone who says this is his first attempt at creative writing, this is a well-written book. And I commend Kayode for this. But then because I had this experience like in my memoir, this was dealing with several aspects of this, but this lovely woman's life, you end up sometimes not getting it right in one or two chapters. As a bit, I didn't enjoy the Shokunle chapter for it. But that's because, again, it takes me off the more Hollandse, and then it does something very well in this book. Each chapter has a specific theme that then guides you. But then with that chapter, it doesn't work with me. But that's again very subjective. So I want to commend for this lovely book. And as you read this book, I kept thinking of Mercy Adama, the lovely mother of Kayode. My mother suffered immensely from being an Igbo woman married to a Yoruba man who was a playboy of some sort, who knew everybody. And yet my mom had to struggle with the complex tonalities of the Yoruba language. She couldn't deal with it. So she was one of those that her accent of the language was so bad that she struggled until she died without finding them to master it. And so as I read accounts of Master Adama, I kept thinking of my mother, saying to myself, so, I mean, she didn't go the same experience as Kayode's mother went through. But the book kept on, I kept saying to myself, so what did my mother go through? Was it similar? To share this stuff? And that's the beauty of this book. I never was doing this to you. And I want to commend Kayode for this lovely book. There are, as I said, other aspects of the book are there. But one aspect of I see of this kind of book that works is how much it helps us to create some form of understanding in our country. My daughter, Olua, has a middle name because of the book. My mother gave her. All I came from Cambridge, take part in the election to vote. Her father's card had a name of the tailor. He made switch for people, and then he would always say to me, you know, this is good. I don't know how to wear a suit very well. So I want to say to myself, but so, I don't know how to do it. But you married one of them. He said, yeah, well, that's different. That's a different story. That's my father, who then said to me, and would have very, and Papa was very, he was very, very close to the on, and would ask him to turn around. And my neighbor. But then when it was there for measurement, you will look at them and say, well, the shoe you're wearing, so you get them a proper broke shoes to wear, measurement. And I would see in some element of frustration, saying that when a woman goes for measurement, it's properly dressed. When a woman comes, the shoes are not nice. That's a proper, but you are a woman. So Kayode, I want to commend you for this lovely book, and it has done a lot of things. And all kinds of practice. I mean, body photograph, for instance, in this book, you can go on and on. Olobì herself, it comes across as a thirsty woman, but someone that was actually in love with. Because Olobì, you say, after saying in English, she would say her own. It doesn't matter who she asks for, she would say her own, and she stood by it. Am I right? Those who read the book. But when you read the book, you see what I'm saying.
About Kayode Samuel and his wife, Professor Ronke Samuel, congratulations on this Day event. I bring warm greetings from my husband, Dr. Kayode, but as I jokingly shared with Professor Samuel, I'm here in my own capacity. I just came back from a trip on Sunday night, and I told my husband I'll be in Lagos for the rest of the week, so I won't be coming to Abuja just yet, that I want to attend a Kayode's event on Tuesday. So my husband looked at me and said, "Oh, you are going to go? Oh, thank God!" Because he has been sending reminders to me as well. I said, "Don't worry, I'll be there." So yes, here I am to celebrate with my dear Egbon, and just to emphasize that it's important for us to tell stories about women, to tell stories about the agency of women, their contributions, and the impact that they've had beyond being wives and mothers, how they help build community, how they help shape a nation. For those of us of the younger generation who are now doing work around women's rights, feminist activism, we are always being told, this is not how our mothers were, this is not how our grandmothers were. It is a profound insult to the legacies of women like Kayode to say that feminism or women's rights activism was imported into Africa. You have always had women's rights activists. You have always had women who have believed in the power of women to change their life and take control over their own bodies and their environment. The language that they use might have been different. The context might have been different. But we have always had OLOBI. If I think back to my own grandmother, great-grandmother, they were amazing women, and they did things that a lot of men in this generation will never dare do. But we don't know the story because we haven't cared to put them down. So thank you, Kayode Samuel, for doing this. I look forward to reading the book, and I hope that we will all be inspired to go back and remember our foremothers. If that's not with us, try and remember them as much as you can, and they're still with us, try and take down the story. Thank you.
So I know that we're in for a good read, and we're in for a lot of surprises, and we're in for stories that we can pass on to our own children too. Like Her Excellency said, our parents were quite full of exploits. I'll just tell you one before I sit down concerning my own mother, not even my grandmother. She was a lace merchant. She trained as a nurse, but she chose to be an entrepreneur. And over the years, she forgot most of her English words, especially colors. So when she went to the factory to order her clothes and the fabric, she would speak English, and we were in school, we would be embarrassed when she's speaking to the Indians and the Austrians. And she would say, mix orange with yellow, and so we would get him and say, no, mommy, you can't say that. She said, he understands the colors I want, he produces them, and I make my money. That was the kind of life that our parents and our grandparents had. I thank you, Kayode, for putting these stories together, and also for reminding us to pass on our story as well, so that especially the millennials and the Z generation can appreciate that we do have a culture of our own, and we do have our own lifestyle developed by us. Even our government, everything developed by us, as Her Excellency said, until the Europeans, the Western, the so-called developed world came. So we need to write our history. Thank you so much for being here.
The gentleman on my left-hand side, you were classmates at the famous government college. You were colleagues at the famous government college in Bangkok. I used to buy quite a number for your people. And every day, when I first saw a copy of the book, I was wondering, Kayode is but really, we need to go into it. Like the chairman said, every page was dealing with more, and there was no lazy page throughout. I went through it up till last night because I thought that finishing, the in a few minutes. But one, the letters are very small, so I have to spend my little set of glasses to read through the. Kayode has done a wonderful, where is it? I'm sure you also popularized that trait. My driver of over 40 years, sitting on my right hand side, he said, "Oh, you know, I'm a man car." And I thought that when we went for the funeral, I didn't even report that Mama was OLOBI. And like Dr. Marco said, perfect prose, perfect English. You cannot afford not to read. Thank you very much.
And the second chapter with the title Mercy and Femi, a family tree narrative is constructed. Inside it, another construction is made. It's an ethnic rupture. What OLOBI will later consider an ethnic misalignment. For Femi, the author's father, who brought about the misalignment, went eastward to forge a matrimony with an Igbo. Apologies to OLOBI. Mercy Adama. Adama from Owerri in Imo State. That narrative of perceived matrimonial misalignment runs through this book. OLOBI traded in Kola North in pre- and post-Nigerian independence era. She was a woman whose actions provoked profound wit. Her grandson, the author, must have inherited the flakes of her spellbinding wit. Let me give you an instance. The 1975 news of a successful coup plot which caught General Yakubu Gowon away from Nigeria in an OAU meeting in Kampala, Uganda, brought out the best of wit from OLOBI's action. It so happened that not too far away from the Samuel Edwin family house was a notorious haven of depraved people called Kampala Hotel. It was also home to Toyenore. The translation is, can you imagine that Gowan went frolicking in Kampala while such a big position was taken away from the land? OLOBI instantly cracked the ribs of all who heard as OLOBI. OLOBI was as I said, was a panel heroine. However, unlike heroines in adventure stories, she exerted spectacular and unforgettable influence within her home. This should be through gripping conversations, family maneuvering, and unique control of our environment. I agree, as narrated in this book, is done like an actress in a theater. The totality of OLOBI's life is a stupendous story, such that it would be unpardonable not to immortalize this persona of OLOBI for posterity as the author has done. The 158-page effort, made up of 22 chapters, Black ESTHER, opens with the author describing the task of writing OLOBI's memoir as, I quote it, the stuff of
an exhilarating legend. It indeed is. OLOBI had an unbiased reading of events, especially once they did not pertain to Igbo. It was only in Igbo matters that our prejudice was as constant as the northern star. One day, family members sought resolution to a challenge posed by our nephew, who having just graduated from learning a printing trade, had put a teenage girl in the family with. OLOBI's first magisterial pronouncement of being told of the nephew's rascally video was a philosophical cause and effect equation. In the same exact dialect of her, she said, "Ẹni kò bá yó, kíní rẹ̀ kì í lé o." It means an erect manhood is a fallout of a full belly. It defined, I believe, that for a boy who was still being fed at home, to find the energy to impregnate a girl, it was a sign of an overfed belly. Then when family members wondered how the nephew could have become that aberrant, concluding that the OLOBI nephew was seized by the spirit of wrongdoing, Esther draws the family tree of the Edos, as well as that of the Igbo woman, whom the OLOBI son got married to. His 5th chapter plus the draft of the periodic battle fought between the OLOBI and Mercy Adama. This was a war fought with non-kinetic weaponry, not with bullets, swords or spears, but with sharp, lacerating tongues, bodily language of condemnation, and innuendo that penetrated the skin more than bullets. The words were fought not on account of Mercy Adama's motherhood failure, but OLOBI's perception of her son's mismatching. This was especially due to her fabulous beliefs about the Igbo. When OLOBI saw and cried, her son's British scholar researcher friend, who arrived in Nigeria in the late 1960s from the University of Sussex, her prejudice and this provocation instantly came alive. Inú wọn ṣe wá rí kọ́ńbó báyìí. Why are their noses so funnily shaped? She asked. OLOBI had this with biology about which women with a particular physique to carry pregnancies to term. Certainly not with flat tummy ones, she reasoned. Her grandson, author of this book, articulated this biological reasoning very well on page 141 when he said, OLOBI's, I quote him now, measure of the success of marriage was directly proportional to the number of children the union produced. She also held tightly to the belief that a lady with a flat belly was a major suspect of a potential barrenness. The positives of the above this day as she met Mrs. Pride and verbalized her flat-tummy prejudice again. She verbalized her flat-tummy prejudice again. She asked no one in particular, in a mixture of mischief and prejudice. Ikun rẹ̀ pẹlẹbẹ yìí, a lè gbọmọ dúró. With this flat tummy of hers sustain a fetus. Again, when the author's girlfriend, who later became his lifelong partner, first visited him in the family house, OLOBI was brought down by her flat tummy. What's in the jury, aka body, is another study in irreversibility of her ethnic denunciation. She, however, had a deep Yoruba saying as justification for singling out God for reverence. Any fully loved woman, you is a full body. Whoever gives one their child to marry must be esteemed like a deity that you kneel to worship, she said. She quickly added, nevertheless, as a broadside against her daughter-in-law, Nemesis, that the quality of the gift God gave the family, that is, the author's mother, was very suspect. So OLOBI, persons of etiquette will ensure supply among the group. When Mr. Adama accuses her of hypocrisy over this claim, OLOBI further verified her God-given justification theory by saying, gbogbo ẹnu rẹ sọ̀rọ̀ ògbédè bọ́ọ̀dì nìkan ni yíbo tí mo mọ̀ tó ní lárí ní gbogbo àgbáyé rẹ̀. Meaning, if your mouth shut, you that cannot speak Yoruba but know the mystery of the language. God is the only man I know in the world who has some substance in him. In the words of OLOBI, in the author's words, let me quote it, OLOBI loves to hold court and pronounce magisterially, especially over other people's affairs. Her counsel and input were often sought after. In the position as head of one of the, I went on and on into it, I got to explain because of time. In the intellectual and emotional value filled me up as if I just devoured a place of Tanzania. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for listening.
Each time I try to instantiate some of my stories, experience from her. The regular response was that, oh, you must write something about it. You can't just let all the stories go to waste. And those who knew her, like my old classmate at government college, Kayode was reminding me this morning that, you know, the kinds of things that she had from her just totally out of this. So I told myself, well, one of these days I've made that my assignment. Fortunately for me, COVID came. You know, we're all locked down. That was when I went this might be an opportunity. So in March of 2000, I started putting things in paper. I wasn't too serious about it. Eventually, after the lifting of the first COVID lockdown in October of 19, I then told my Kayode, CEO of Coca. I think I have something that you might want to take a look at. I said, by all means, to ask me. I took I think I had 14 chapters there. I took it to him and said, well, let me take a look at it. And then he called me and I said, there has to be more to that story than just those 14 chapters. Try and challenge your memory to recall a lot more things. And eventually, between end of 2001 and 2002, of course, with the very, very deep and have done this. Now, what chapter of this book do I want to read from the perspective of his chief? I think I will read the chapter that concerns my wife. Because, again, it is a living story. She is there, and of course, it's a chapter that is not likely to take all of the time. The chapter starts at page 131. It is titled start page 148, and it is the chapter titled Lineage Matters. So what is the and I will begin to read. Despite her legendary disagreements with her estranged husband, the continuity and perpetuation of lineage was always paramount concern for Olori. She was a woman much troubled by the recurring cases of stillbirths and infant mortality in her own maternal journey. This was to lead her to be mother to just 2 boys out of 11 pregnancies. Thus, it was understandable that she would sometimes fall into a state of apprehension that the lineage will simply disappear one day, if not well taken. She therefore took upon herself the vigilance that would assure the unfelt mother and the utterly embarrassing. Any new female entrant into the family, or even a harmless female acquaintance of a male family member, was scrupulously scrutinized by the OLOBI for their reproductive capacity and childbearing potential. It was sometimes a shameless scrutiny that almost bordered on scientific selection science. I have met Aderoke, the girl who was later become my wife, on the day I finished the examinations for my master's program at the University of Kayode. She was standing at the gate waiting for transport, and I simply walked up to her, asked her where she was headed, and when she would be back. Naturally, she gave me a quizzical look. She left me with a passing shot. The Irashal Arrow will be seen other than you think well to reflect on what she would do. And then she disappeared from the passing and went back to her basic ambition that she obviously accomplished and message well. She probably walked off from her encounter quite pleased with herself, regardless of my embarrassment. I quietly went back to attend class. That afternoon, I found myself reflecting on whether there was indeed any connection whatsoever between the flatness of the human stomach and our ability to conceive or carry a pregnancy. None of my biology teachers at school ever mentioned anything of myself. And even if there was any connection, that was not the topic that I was going to start broaching with my OLOBI on the subject. It was a later transpired years thereafter that Aderoke actually caught the brief of what the OLOBI said that time. And as we married and our children started to come years later, she would even be with her recall of my encounter with the OLOBI that time, especially her expressed vows about my ability to conceive. But the one that should really have been the God of baptism and lived it should have been the OLOBI herself. My grandmother, she was not practicing anything. She was just devoted to her Kolanut trade. And my grandfather then told her, if you want to be with me, you have to, you are born a Muslim, but you are saying, move away from the Muslim faith. And so, make up your mind what you want to be, and just be a devotee of a particular faith. My grandfather was a Methodist, so she then decided to start going with him to church. It was how come she got baptized as Esther. Of course, much later in life, when my grandfather then married his other wife after they had separated, and she turned out to be a Muslim. The OLOBI went to town about how my grandfather had discriminated. That when she